event is going to continue in 2 languages, so it will be translated. To activate your translation option, please have a look at the bottom of your screen. There you will see a globe icon. If you press on it, you will have several options for different channels, English or Ukrainian. So please choose the convenient option. Like last time, I will be your moderator today. I am Daria Ozhihanova, director of the bachelor's program of the Kharkiv School of Architecture. I'm an architect by training, and in a minute, I'm going to discuss our beautiful project. And under the project, I'm a coordinator of various activities on behalf of the Kharkiv School of Architecture. Our project, under which this webinar is being conducted together with the Greek organization Heritage Management and Skeiron, our another partner, a 3D scanning company engaged in digitalization of Ukrainian heritage. We are dealing with the project Preserving Heritage during the conflict, Ukrainian Model. The project itself aims at fostering conservation, preservation, and promotion of Ukrainian cultural heritage by documenting its cultural monuments and also capacity building and professional training. We have quite a lot of training activities planned, and we are practicing hands-on approach for architects who are already practicing in the branch of heritage, or the aspiring young professionals who are going to join the practitioners in a year or 2. So the webinar is the first webinar planned for 2025, but we have planned quite a lot of them for this spring and for the rest of the year. So please follow us in social media. We are going to inform about our new public events of the public program, and we will be glad to see you in our other events. Everyone who is unable to attend our webinars, but who is interested in following what we are doing, we are going to provide you with a recording of our events. And also, I encourage you to use our Q&A option and chat option to ask questions and give us comments, and we will be trying to voice these questions to our experts and speakers, and hopefully we will have time to get their answers. And I hope that our discussion today will be very fruitful. It could be that some questions will be asked after this event, but those who have posed them will get our written answers. So our today's topic is preserving heritage during a conflict, sharing lessons learned. This webinar brings together experts with various experiences so that we could discuss methodologies, challenges, and issues relevant for us, and to try to design some solutions in the times of crisis which we are now experiencing. So today I am really glad to introduce to you our 4 great speakers. Corinne Wagner, our first speaker who has joined us today, is an independent cultural property professional. She is a trainer and advisor in the protection of cultural heritage during armed conflict and other disasters. She has more than 20 years of experience as an art historian, museum curator, and emergency responder. She used to be a director of the Smithsonian Cultural Rescue Initiative, and she is a current board member of the U.S. Committee of Blue Shield. Our second expert and speaker today is Dr. Igor Poshivailo. He is the general director of the National Museum of Heavenly Hundred Heroes and the Museum of the Revolution of Dignity, Maidan Museum. And since the full-scale invasion in 2022, Igor has been coordinating the Heritage Emergency Response Initiative, HARI. He is a member of the National Council for Reconstruction of Ukraine, and he supports local communities in heritage preservation work. Our next speaker is Katerina Kublitska, and I have enjoyed our acquaintance for around a decade. Ms. Kublitska is a conservator and an architect. She has won several prestigious awards, including State Prize of Ukraine. No, I have just one prize. The rest is not true. Okay. So just Europa Nostra prize then. Despite the modesty, it is extremely important now to say that presently Ms. Kublitska is working at documenting the damages inflicted to the cultural heritage in Kharkiv, Ukraine, and she is a very active coordinator of local initiatives working in this area. And our next speaker, last but not least, is Tatiana Balukova, a trained architect with extensive professional experience in both Ukraine and Germany. She also currently serves as the head of the Lviv City Department of Historic Environment Protection. And she is designing presently long-term strategies for heritage conservation and restoration. Each of our speakers has something to say and very important things about heritage in times of war. We start our conversation today with the presentation by Ms. Wagner, so that we could present to you the international experience, to give us an opportunity as Ukrainians to refer to the international experience. Later, we will continue with the present-day situation in Ukraine. Our next speaker will be Mr. Poshivailo. Then Ms. Kublitska will introduce her own vision and her own initiatives. And I think it would be very appropriate to sum up our today's session of the presentations with Ms. Balukova presentation, who has great international experience and who is now focusing on the work on Ukrainian heritage. So, to cut the long story short, Corey, you have the floor, and thank you very much for your presentation and participation.
And thanks very much for the invitation to be with you today. So I'm charged with the difficult task of presenting an international perspective. And I think that one of the challenges of that is in a short time picking some cases that I've been involved with that would help illustrate some of the needs in times of armed conflict for architecture, and also remembering that oftentimes the architecture, being historic in and of itself, is also the housing for collections and other important cultural heritage that we all want to try to protect. So with that in mind, I would like to talk to you about a couple of brief case studies, and I'm trying to get my screen to behave. Okay, and that is, and I want to also acknowledge that this photo is from Ihor Poshivailo's organization, the Heritage Emergency Response Initiative, and he's been kind enough to allow us to use some of those photos because of our collaboration in the past several years. So What I'd like to talk to you about today are a couple of cases that I was involved in over the years working with the Smithsonian. And one of them is the Haiti Cultural Recovery Project. And a particular case that we worked on with our Haitian colleagues, the Holy Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in Port-au-Prince. This is a photo of the Holy Trinity Cathedral in 2006, prior to the earthquake, and the damage that it experienced in 2010 was devastating. You see here the interior of the building, a very large, beautiful cathedral. And inside the cathedral were many murals hand painted directly onto the plastering of the walls, which were backed with concrete block. And I'm hoping everybody is seeing the slides um, as I'm advancing them. So you see here the beauty of the interiors, and then let's make this advance. And then, unfortunately, this is what we saw in the aftermath of the March 6, 2010 earthquake. And as a reminder, I know this is a very long time ago for many of us, and especially for younger people, might not be as aware of it. But in this terrible earthquake, more than 200,000 Haitians died in a very short span of time from the earthquake itself and the aftershocks. And you see here the damage done to the cathedral. And I want to point out that this marking on the building is by an organization of the Ministry of Culture, ISPAN, or the Institute for Safeguarding National Patrimony. And so even though Haiti wasn't experiencing an active armed conflict at the time of the disaster, I wanted to also point out that it was in a post-conflict situation of great political instability, and that the UN had active in the country MINUSTA, the UN peacekeeping mission, which also included US military personnel that were active. And so they were in this sort of post-conflict instability, and then the earthquake caused that to become what we think of as a complex disaster, where you've got the military and political instability overlaid with a massive disaster. And so Eastbahn took the opportunity, understanding that there would be a rush, and this is a problem that we all face and that I think will be part of our discussion today, is that in the post-disaster moment, when a building is destroyed or even whole city centers are destroyed, there's the life-saving activities that happen, but not long after that, there's a push to try as best as we can to clean up the damage and to try and get a return to normal as quickly as we can. And this is something we face over and over again, and that I've seen in my more than 20 years, is that rush to get back to normal can often mean that we lose cultural heritage and cultural heritage sites with that rush. You see here the damage in the interior of the building from the inside, and you see here some of the cultural heritage that we were trying to save. These are murals of the life of Christ that were around the entire interior of the building, as you saw earlier. There were 15 murals on the inside of the building, and these were unique. They were painted in the 1950s, showing scenes from the life of Christ, which included Haitian people. And this was unique and a bit controversial at the time to have, usually when you saw scenes from the life of Christ, everybody was white, everybody looked European. And here it's actually taking place, the scenes are taking place in the setting of Haiti itself. Unfortunately, after the earthquake, only 3 of those original murals survived. And the task was, how could we possibly save these? And I can't go into the long detail of how the Smithsonian was working with the Haitian Ministry of Culture and the government there. There's a long background of history of collaboration between Haiti and the Smithsonian. But let's just say that the Smithsonian was asked to intervene as soon as it was practical for us to do so. And so but even so, with the devastation of that earthquake, we weren't able to come until a couple of months really after the earthquake had occurred. And this is kind of the scene that we saw in those early days. And of course, the congregation wanted to work on getting the rubble cleaned up and things like that. But the first case was, how could we possibly save these murals from the terrible damage? And you see here, those are there's one more much smaller mural that was also salvaged. But you see here the baptism of Christ scene. And I wanted to point up that, as I mentioned earlier, Eastbahn took the initiative early, immediately after the earthquake, to go and mark these buildings that they had been cleared and with the ID number. In other words, to say that the work of life saving was complete and that this is a historic site. So please, the civil society work that was being done to clear rubble in the weeks and months after the earthquake, to please bypass this building because it needed to be salvaged in a sensitive way, to look for remaining fragments, for artifacts and items that might be salvaged, to be able to, so that the congregation could save those in the hopes of using them possibly in a future rebuilding of the church. And then Eastbahn later expanded on this idea, and I really love this idea, and I try to talk to anybody who will listen about it, that they created this stencil that their teams could use when they went out, and they overwrote this even on, and you can see that Eastbahn has the spray paint like you see here, but then they've overlaid it with this stencil that says, "We protect our patrimony." And you could find it on cultural sites all in the surrounds of Port-au-Prince in the months after the earthquake in 2010. And so that's something that I hope can be adopted in some manner for many organizations. I also wanted to mention one of the challenges we faced, that we had a hard time convincing, and rightfully so, the civil sector and the emergency response, humanitarian response sector sometimes, that it was important to save the cultural heritage, because as you can imagine, when 200,000 people die in the course of a few weeks from a disaster like this, the focus is all on humanitarian response, life saving first, and then helping the more than 300,000 people who were injured in the earthquake because so many buildings completely collapsed. Um, the USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, had a project to pay Haitians $5 a day to clear rubble. And they were sending teams out across the city without regard, though, often to pay attention to the buildings that were cultural. And then you would find out that a cultural heritage building had been cleaned by these rubble teams without saving any of the fragments. So this was something that we tried to talk Smithsonian to USAID to say, can we pay people $5 a day to clear cultural buildings and teach them how to look for the fragments that we want to save? And we were told, no, we have no time for that kind of, activity. So one of the challenges, so solutions are to talk to people early and often about these issues. So anyway, as we made those arguments, though, for the Holy Trinity Church, we were able to create this scaffolding that I showed a moment ago, work with Haitian artists and conservation professionals, working with US conservation professionals, and even a small team of international, to save these murals, to stabilize them, and create a wooden overlay so that they could actually be removed from the walls and saved in this manner, bit by bit. It's a long, I could talk for a week about just this project and how professionally and amazingly it was done. But you see here, those murals are now in pieces that are in storage in Haiti, hopefully for, the finalization of their plan, which has still not fully been activated, but the murals are saved for whatever that community wants to do with them in the future. The other project that I'd like to talk about, which Of course, the Smithsonian team, the Cultural Rescue Initiative that worked on this project for the Mosul Cultural Museum often thought back to our experiences of working in Haiti, where we had so many heavily damaged buildings. And I have to say, sometimes it helped when we were talking through the processes with our Iraqi colleagues to talk about that a little bit and to show them images of how badly damaged Port-au-Prince was, because Mosul was also heavily, heavily damaged by the fighting to regain the city of Mosul, and also by the intentional damage by ISIS. And I think sometimes it helps international colleagues to say, yes, it's very bad, but other people have faced this kind of terrible devastation in the past and they've overcome it and done the work. So you can too. You may remember, some of you, from the 20 teens, the rise of ISIS, or as in Arabic we say Daesh, and the intentional damage that they did to Iraq and Syrian cultural heritage, but in particular in the city of Mosul. And here, this is the inside of the museum, of film of them intentionally damaging sculpture. They did a huge amount of damage inside the museum with explosives, intentionally destroying things like this throne dais in the center of the room, of the Neo-Assyrian galleries. These are pieces from one of the most important cultural sites in Iraq, the archaeological site of Nimrud, which they intentionally wanted to destroy, but also in part as a cover-up for stealing things that were permanently installed in this building. Luckily, most of the collections had been evacuated, but many things were too big and too heavy and permanently installed and could not be moved. But you see here the before and after of the damage that was done in several of the galleries. And then things just, architectural fragments that were being displayed, just being, stolen off the walls. And here also damage, in addition to explosives, as ISIS was leaving this building, which they were using as a headquarters, the museum building, they set fire to the entire library and it was completely lost. But the question was, how much damage did that hot fire and all these explosives do to the building? So in this project, and here you see the terrible, what we thought might be irrevocable structural damage to the flooring of the building and the foundation. So the question was, we were asked by Aleph, and working with partners at the Louvre Museum and with World Monuments Fund and others, and of course our Iraqi colleagues from the Ministry of Culture and the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage, how we could help and what would be the best method, because this is a crime scene. This is a violation of the 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in Armed Conflict. And we wanted to be sure that the documentation that we did was very complete so that that could potentially be used in a criminal proceeding in the future if the Iraqis wanted to advance that. And I think this is something that Ukrainians are very sensitive to, because they too are facing damage to cultural heritage that is a violation of the Hague Convention, and will almost certainly want to proceed with criminal accusations in the future. And the evidence that you have for that is very important to gather. And in other words, if we have a time when communities try to too quickly clean things up and don't take the time to do the proper documentation, that evidence may be lost. And the intentions are good, but we need to help people understand through things like what we're doing today, these kind of panel discussions, training for young professionals and students about the Hague Convention and what kind of evidence you need. And that's what we tried to do with the Mosul project. So here you just see some of the planning that we did ahead of time. We called it the Mosul Museum Project Zero because it was the work that we had to do before we could answer questions like, is the building salvageable and can be rehabilitated? How should we do that? And so we did an extensive engineering survey. with colleagues who were working on various cultural heritage projects in Iraq. They deemed that and from Mosul University, and they deemed that the museum was in fact structurally sound and could be rehabilitated. And then we set off with the forensic heritage documentation process. And so we treated it like a cold case crime scene, just like in the TV shows. We used a criminal investigative method to do the documentation. We did the photography, we did a lot of filming. We learned this methodology from the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, the art crime team, and they gave us lessons on how to carry this work out. And you see here, we're documenting not just the damage to the building, but also evidence of the causes of that damage, like explosive residues, remnants of war, as you see here, and working closely with our Iraqi colleagues to understand that we're documenting what's missing also. So here we have the museum director explaining to Smithsonian staff, you know, here there was a mural and now it's missing, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then creating detailed measurements and drawings, just like you would for a crime scene for a murder. You have these drawings, you have the photography, you have the testimony from people who were there and understood the context and what was missing. Here you have a drawing of the room with the big hole in the floor. And so, and then we put all this together in an extremely detailed report for the Iraqi Ministry of Culture. They have that, and you know, this evidence is available to them. And I just wanted to mention that the Smithsonian and our colleagues with the Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab have been working on documenting damage to Ukrainian sites since the full-scale invasion started in 2022. And we've been working closely with Ihor's organization, HARI, but also with an organization, HEMO, the Ukrainian Heritage Monitoring Lab, and we have trained people from HEMO in that same forensic heritage documentation methodology. And they've been doing this kind of work for the last year and a half or so with us, and using our satellite imagery where we do the documentation and combining it with the on-the-ground reporting. So I think this is a good model for the future. And I'll close there. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. It is an extremely interesting presentation, and despite the fact that you have been showing really sad things and really horrible things, because it is so horrible to see heritage that is being damaged, the experience you have shown, at least for me, gives this feeling that we are not alone, that we are not unique, and there is a methodology of working through it, and we are able to use your methodology. And here I would like to give the floor to Mr. Poshivailo, who is going to share very practical experience of his work in documenting damages to cultural heritage during the times of war. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for your invitation to join today's webinar. Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. And actually, it was Ms. Wagner who started a lot of Ukrainian teams and activists on their way to taking the command of the methodology of documentation. So I would like to share our field experience. And again, we owe our field experience to our international colleagues. And I think I met Corey in 2014, maybe 2015, when Smithsonian was very active together with UNESCO and other international e-commerce partners. They were doing trainings in emergency response to cultural heritage damages. And then when our war started, which was not yet in its full-scale stage, we were asking ourselves the question how to give this emergency response in terms of crisis. And then we actually realized we were not ready in Ukraine at the institutional level. And when we attended trainings in other countries, well, we understood that there were no systematic programs which could be used to give a comprehensive emergency response in such cases. So the experience of our colleagues who shared it actually was put to good use then and later. And Corey, you have shown this map already, and yes, this map illustrates primarily for our international partners today the great challenge of protecting not only the people, not only the civil objects, but also our cultural heritage. And you can see on this map that our cultural heritage, our historic monuments, our museum collections, our archives are spread, are found all over Ukraine. And so under this full-scale invasion, it was quite a challenge. And it still is. So in Ukraine, we are aware of our day-to-day situation, and we understand that cultural heritage suffers irreparable damage. And it is not accidental, it is premeditated, and it is done through the policy promoted by Russian Federation, who tries to eliminate our cultural identity. And here I give you the figures. So 12 out of 12,000 objects of civil infrastructure, half were cultural heritage objects. And when we talk about preserving cultural heritage in terms of war, in times of war, we need to understand what exactly we need to protect. And it is rather logical. When we're talking about heritage, we mean movable, immovable, tangible, intangible heritage. And all these kinds of heritage are being damaged, are being destroyed, are being stolen during the war. And these are the crimes that are documented under the methodology presented by Ms. Wagner, and we are adapting them to our current situation in Ukraine. But also we are discussing the cultural heritage, as being multi-componental, and one of the components is the people. And the people are both the bearers and the users of cultural heritage. And in this situation, we needed to react, to respond very efficiently during the first days of war. And here we list the kinds of responses that were needed from local self-government, from a national government, from specific agencies and institutions, or specific experts. We needed to evacuate collections. And it was quite a challenge and a separate topic for discussion, but the evacuation was quite a challenge because we needed to find, safe, arbitrarily safe premises to store our collections, to make them safe and to keep them safe. Another important part of our work was documentation of the damages and risks, and then use this documentation to stabilize and conserve objects and sites and buildings, to document military crimes against culture. It was a very important response to the crisis we have to undergo, posed by the war and the large-scale crisis. illegal evacuation of cultural heritage was another challenge, and the customs officers report on expropriation of illegally transported objects of archaeological and historical significance. Of course, we must respond to the situation. And besides these very obvious things, there was a need, and there is a need to formulate strategies and visions. And here we are dealing with capacity building, which will result in resilience and sustainable development. And finally, one more consequence we need to deal with is the need to create a national system of risk management, of crisis, of emergency response, which should be based upon a national strategy and national teams, which will be authorized to act according to the protocols of specific protocols. And Corey, you have also mentioned Harry. It was our attempt to create well, something to respond to the situation that we had to face. So that is why we have established Heritage Emergency Response Initiative, and it has been working on the basis of several legal persons, including HEMA, including the Maidan Museum and the agency of ECUR. And of course, today we need to provide specific equipment, we need to arrange field visits, but also we need to museify heritage objects, collect objects which would be evidence about specific crimes and the response from the local communities to them. And we also have been arranging exhibitions, both in Ukraine and abroad, showing our findings. And all these activities are needed to give the prospect, to show that Ukrainian culture is a living being. It is being modernized, and it is very pleasant for us that during the first days of war, the Minister of Culture said that Ukrainian culture should not be just preserved, it must be modernized and updated and enlivened for communities. I would like very quickly to present the experience which we have gained with the help of our international partners. For instance, we learned how to assess risks and damages. Here, I would like to mention e-commerce and ICROM, which started us in Chernihiv in 2014. And we were introduced to this by an expert who was one of the experts who were dealing with the damages in Iraq. And he came to Ukraine as a volunteer, and he was also working with UNESCO, sharing his unique experience. Here you can see some pictures from our field trips where we applied the international experience and approaches to practical documentation of cultural objects, and try to understand how to engage local communities in the process. We have collaborated with the army, who were helping us to evacuate artifacts and collections. We were involved in clearly documenting the mobile heritage, and the army helped us a lot in finding specific objects and dealing with them. The immobile heritage also is being very actively documented, in particular under the grant we have received from the embassy, from the US Embassy, and we are applying it in 2 regions. Of course, we are collaborating very closely with the hromadas, with the regional authorities, and we are trying to pilot the algorithms which we are going to upscale to other regions. Also, I can give you samples of documentation of various kinds of heritage, including religious buildings, which also showcase our cultural heritage. And documentation is important. Why? Not just for us documenting something, but it will be the foundation for our further work, including early rebuilding and restoration. And a very good example here is the library in Chernihiv, which was destroyed by bombing, and we visited it in spring and summer in 2022, and we were told there is no chance to actually restore it because 2 aviation bombs were, it has become the target for 2 bombs, and it practically just was lifted into the air by the explosion. But now this building is stabilized and it has a chance to wait till its full restoration. And today, maybe we have some representatives of the Cabinet of Ministers. And so practitioners who are also part of our audience should know about the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. And it has provided us with a legal foundation for our further activities. And this is a must and a good point to start with. And according to this resolution, we also have amendments to it, and they are very laconic, very clear, transparent papers, because they are documenting the very act of damage. But for us, it was not enough. And when we're dealing with cultural heritage, we have to have very detailed descriptions. And so we use the ICROM forms, damage assessment forms, to document mobile and immobile heritage in Ukraine. And we used it later also. Actually, this is not just a translation. This is a field-tested form. It is both. It has both the digital and the hard copy form. And using these damage and risk assessment forms, we are making reports about the damage and the risk assessment and the need for the intervention. Here you can see some more examples of our reports. The Odessa mission, to which we were invited by UNESCO. So we provided a lot of detailed photos, panoramic views, etc. And in general, everything actually we did follows a very simple procedure, a standardized ICROM process. So emergency response includes a situation analysis, assessment at the site, then measures to stabilize and to ensure safety. Because I'm pressed for time, I would just say that our algorithms are extremely transparent and clear, and you can find them, we can share. And also, of course, for us, it is very important not only to work in the field, but also to share knowledge and to translate the knowledge of our international partners to the Ukrainian situation. We have so many international partners who are doing a lot of training for museum curators, for conservators, for documentalists, for all sorts of legal agencies. So capacity building is really very powerful today. And since 2014, and thanks to Corey specifically and to the Smithsonian Institution, we have designed a package of methodological materials. You can find them at our site. And we have actually specific materials even for the Army. And we have published them as our first step to invite other participants. And we started, once again, I remind you, in 2014. So last year, we also translated the guidelines and toolkit, which you can find on our site. You can also apply for getting a paperback version of it. We share it free of charge. And also, I would like to mention one more instruction, what to do if your cultural heritage site is occupied by the Russian Federation. It is not that simple. You will be responsible not only for the cultural heritage, but also for the people. And our Western colleagues were, sent us a commission to design such a guide so that they could work legally in Ukraine. And one more thing, which is very important, we have designed the protocol of emergency collaboration. And you will hear it in all sorts of meetings that it is important to economize resources, to economize time resources and people resources. And so in Odessa, we had a joint workshop. And as a result, we have designed 10 pages of this document. You can find them on our site. It was designed in 2022, 2023. I think it would also be of use for you. Last year, with the help of ICROM and with the help of the embassy, we have trained a team of culture saviors and culture emergency responders. Last year, in September, we have also created the Black Sea Regional Hub of emergency response. And we were joined there by our colleagues from Lviv, from Kherson. And also we had information that US government has invested $1 million to ICROM to create a system of emergency response in Ukraine. There are a number of mobile laboratories, including our own, ACURE, and other ones, and we are trying to use them to respond very, very quickly to challenges in times of war. Here on this slide, you can see the challenges that we are facing. So coordination is one of the first challenges to mention here. It is also very important to legalize international practices and methodologies. Last year, European Commission, with several experts, including me, actually managed to finish 2 years of work with publication of recommendations to European governments, including also Ukraine and its regional authorities. So we do hope that international methodologies and standards will start working in Ukraine, and our legislature will be aligned to the EU legislation. Thank you very much. I will be glad to answer questions. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Igor. And I would like to remind all our guests today that you have an opportunity to ask your questions using the chat option or Q&A option. So we will use them later to organize our discussion. And now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Katerina Kublitska, who is going to show us, to give us cases to discuss, both challenging and successful in Kharkiv and Kharkiv region. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my experience, and I will start with March 2022, and I will tell you how we were responding to the ruination and damages to immobile cultural heritage in the Kharkiv region as a result of the armed aggression started by Russia against Ukraine. So I would like to share our challenges, our conclusions, and our triumphs, and of course, the failures which we experienced. So I'm starting to share my slides. Just a second. Right. Well, Kharkiv is a city, and Kharkiv region is the region that suffered colossal damages during this war. And every day in Kharkiv and in Kharkiv region is a day that can bring any sort of ruination. And we never know when we wake up in the morning what we are going to lose during this day. I started my work in the field as an expert in a team of architects and construction engineers who were investigating, inspecting objects that were damaged as a result of shelling or bombing or explosions. And in April or May 2022, when Kharkiv got some stability and Kharkiv welcomed quite a lot of teams coming with local initiatives, we established a hybrid team inspecting the objects, and this team included one architect, conservator, me, a construction engineer, a team of volunteers who were documenting the military crimes, including photographers and video specialists. And also we had prosecutors and agents of the state service of Ukraine. And we were driving around the region in 2 cars and doing technical inspection and investigation, presenting reports, and using the data that we gathered to present our expert opinion. And these cases were initiated by the prosecutor as cases concerning armed aggression. And the first attempt at scanning that we had, together with Gleb Lisovy, you can see his name on the slide, was the museum in Skovorodynovka village. And it was our first attempt to scan the object, to investigate the object. And Gleb was getting his first experience in scanning the damaged museum as a result of a crime. Here you can see what happened in the Skovorodynovka village with this museum in May 2022. Also, we were gathering evidence and also talking to the administration of the museum about the authentic materials which we could, how to deal with them, and how to instruct the volunteers what to do when they come to remove the debris. We tried to say that this is not just a heap of debris, these are the materials that could be used for further reconstruction conservation and restoration. So here you can see us working. Ms. Wagner described it very well. We were like, murder investigators together with the prosecutor. We were trying to trace the projectile coming into the museum and how the explosion developed, and on what side, and well, for ourselves, actually, we were learning as experts. We were learning the new kind of physics, how buildings react towards explosions, how buildings get damaged, and our practical investigation of the damaged objects every time taught us something new. And these were discoveries, technical discoveries. And this is something we really are still learning. Together with GLIP and the team I mentioned before, we also documented the Palace of Labor in Kharkiv. Here you can see the damages. And we also documented one more object, which I started investigating as commissioned by the regional administration, given the technical assessment. And then this object became my own personal initiative. And this is an architectural monument in Blagoveshchensky Street in Kharkiv. It was damaged by a projectile, which was very hot. And when it fell on the roof, it caused a fire, a horrible fire. And the building lost its roof as a result of this projectile and fire. And partially the interiors also were damaged. Here you can see the epicenter. And this object actually gave us an opportunity to meet Mr. Durand. Actually, Mr. Poshevalo mentioned him. And together with Mr. Durand, we have scanned several objects in Kharkiv, including this one. Here you can see the scans. Actually, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Durand, because it was a difficult situation with this object. The object suffered not actually from the fire itself. It suffered greatly from the fire extinguishers and from the water that was poured to stop the fire in it. Since June 2022, we have been trying to arrange some simplistic conservation measures, but unfortunately a municipal budget could not participate, because this was not a critical infrastructure object. It didn't have any critical effect on the regional life. So we could hope only for charitable foundations, and the work was really very difficult. But I guess we managed, and Ali Foundation helped us a lot, and Toloka Foundation, which is Kharkiv Hromada Foundation, and their partners, Kharkiv Nuremberg, and the Scout Organization of Kharkiv, all participated in raising enough money for us to buy the construction materials and to start the simplest conservation activities. Here you can see the result. We have managed to disassemble the roof and then cover it. And actually, what made me take this object as my own initiative, because there are so many objects in Kharkiv which still are lacking their roofs. In this object, it was the the conference room, the ballroom, and this is my telephone picture. I have also a scan from manual. This is how it looked like in June 2022. This is the ceiling, and this oval mirror had a great a great mural by the artist Uvarov, The Triumph of Apollo. It fell, and it was damaged together with all the plasterwork around it. So altogether, we designed the activities how to save, to conserve this plaster, the plaster that fell to the floor but didn't break. And so we managed to do that. And this is a picture which I took when we were able to enter this object. And this is in December 2022, meaning that from March to December, the building was open in Kharkiv. So for 11 months, the building was actually damaged by the weather further on. So here we are starting our work inside. You can see the authentic chandeliers. We gave them to administration to be stored. And the second micro project of this object is this painting, Apollo's Triumph. This is how it looked like for a long time. It was laying on the floor. And then it was transported to Kharkiv Museum of Fine Arts. And then there was a huge quest to find local conservators in Kharkiv who were trained enough to work with this object, to conserve, to stabilize. And here you can see this painting now stored in the museum in a warm room, in a dry room. And this is how its conservation started. Here you can see it's fixed, and this stabilized. This is how it is being stored. But unfortunately, for a long time, we tried to kickstart this project, but we failed many times. And in June 2023, this whole ceiling was lost, because the ceiling fell, the fire first, and then the water that extinguished the fire unfortunately did the dirty work. And now, unfortunately, it's not about saving the plasterwork. We didn't manage to save the ceiling, which was restored during the 1980s, during the restoration work. It was restored very deplorably. And when we covered the roof, well, unfortunately, we lost the ceiling. We were consulting our donors who were supporting us and our colleagues from Lviv. And with Polish experts who helped us a lot in finding donors to support this object. Well, but we are all experts. We understand that we sometimes can stabilize the patient like doctors, but we cannot guarantee 100% recovery. So in general, we can say that the building's perimeter is closed. It is dry now. The painting is preserved. The ceiling was scanned. We have the scans. And we have rescanned it when we were doing the scaffolding before the start of the restoration. So now the good thing is that we have enough information for further stages of conservation. Maybe we could restore this ceiling. And I will be very quick now. This object has been investigated together with Manuel and our team, including the prosecutor. This is the fire department in Kharkiv, in Kvitkinska Street. It was bombed twice. And it was very lucky that it was not targeted. The bombs exploded next to it. Presently, this building has no roof, and the foundation is being flooded, which is not good, of course. But in general, when we were investigating and inspecting this building with our engineering construction engineer, this building is salvageable. We understand what technologies we can use to preserve these authentic walls, which actually took the impact from the explosion. And this is the scan, 100% scan done by Manuel. We're very grateful for that. You can see the roof, you can see the staircase, and one more object, which we also did with Manuel. This is Mironositska Street 1. This is the School of Economics, of Kharkiv Karazin University. It was targeted several times, and it suffered also from the explosions next to it. This is part of the administrative district, and our enemies targeted the whole district. Next to it, we have the building of the State Security Service of Ukraine. And so actually this building was targeted by the planes, and so of the enemy, and the bombs exploded next to it. And despite the horrible photos, actually Manuel is a construction engineer in himself, and we also had a local construction engineering. We were doing the visual inspection, and our investigation showed that the building sustained the damage rather well, and structurally it is intact. And as far as I know, Kharkiv Karazin University is now dealing with its restoration. Another interesting thing here is that against the background of this horrible situation, the experts have the access to building technologies of the past. And we were lacking this knowledge a lot. And we are now getting access to materials, direct access to the concrete, to the to bricks, and we have an opportunity to apply all sorts of scientific methods to study these materials, and then to design our restoration strategies based on these facts. And the next building, a super problem for Kharkiv, a very acute challenge and a huge social trauma, the inconvenient heritage, so to say, when a Soviet realism object is being damaged. Mass public calls it Stalin Baroque or Stalin Empire style. And this is an example of this style. This is Kharkiv regional administration. It was targeted by Russian invasion, and I was in the team who inspected the building. I had an opportunity to study the structure of the building, the authentic materials, the technology of the time, and to see what exactly this building was and how it worked. We had quite a lot of discoveries made, but this object for the public, for the general public, is a huge challenge, because it started a discussion in our society. The mayor and the regional administration had said together that the building cannot be restored without waiting for any expert opinion. And so, despite the fact that it is an architectural monument, such a statement was prompted by the public opinion that this object is a Stalinist heritage. Why preserve it? There is an option for us to actually restore this building like this, as it started as a constructivist building, and Kharkiv public is split. And so we had to actually conduct quite a campaign to preserve this inconvenient heritage. Another object like this is Kharkiv municipality, which was damaged quite a lot by explosions that happened nearby, and actually it was damaged during June of 2022, and again the story is the same. Without any consultation with the heritage preservation structures, agencies, there was a statement that this building should be disassembled just because public opinion said this. Now all the buildings that are recognized as Soviet propaganda are in the same situation. And also we have objects which were targeted directly, and they are in horrible technical state. This is a residential house in downtown Kharkiv. These are, well, historical housing buildings, and they cannot be renovated in the same way mass housing buildings are restored in Saltivka, because there are quite a lot of statements from the official structure that let us destroy it totally and let us build something new. I did everything I can to preserve it, to be very articulate about similar objects which are heavily damaged during the hostilities, and that our state policy must be such that we must restore. I think that my colleagues, conservators, understand that actually we can restore quite a lot from debris, really, and things that look like irreparable are not irreparable. So you can restore everything, actually. And this is the problem that we had And this problem follows us since March 2022, when the communal services started to remove the debris. We are very grateful to our municipal services. Our city is very clean. It looks very positive because the debris are taken away very quickly. All the consequences of bombing, of artillery shelling are taken away very quickly. The perimeters of the buildings are closed very quickly. But once again, our downtown area has many objects of cultural importance, and this is very valuable historic development. And all materials from these objects are extremely valuable. And I guess that we had to talk to all sorts of agencies for 1 year maybe, and to raise awareness that these materials must be preserved, and the municipal services must follow a specific protocol. And we were rather successful in 1 year. I think 15 months, 18 months later, in 2023, we managed to create a committee with which whose members were architects, economists, municipal service workers, etc. And this is a team for a prompt response and heritage conservation. And we trained them actually to come to this site and to be present during the removal of debris. And now we even have the premises to store these materials, because a part of the objects that were damaged cannot hold these materials. They will be further damaged. And so we need to remove them, to evacuate them to specific facilities. And this is our key problem. And it also is connected to the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers 1341, which is to provide appropriate response to the damages inflicted by the Russian Federation. Ms. Kublitska, can you please wrap up, because we don't have much time left? So my final statement here then. Okay, so I don't know how it happens in other cities, but in Kharkiv, it doesn't happen very successfully. We do not have sufficient legal grounds to actually work towards the conservation of our heritage. So in Kharkiv, the situation is rather catastrophic. So the municipal services which manage the objects do not consult the experts before they start, restoring the roofs. For instance, here in Dershprom, I hope that you have recognized this object. So they started to restore the roof, and they are doing it, putting the roof not on the bearing structures, but on the non-bearing structures, because they're not specialists. And by this, they are inflicting further damage to the object itself. And so these are the things that, well, that are rather horrible. And actually, here a few challenges I would like to voice. So, complete physical destruction of monuments by the war, partial destruction, significant structural damage, which will be revealed during the 50 years to come, irrevocable loss of authentic materials and details of monuments, very slow changes of the regulatory legal field, so which prevents emergency responding. The problem of preservation of objects belonging to this inconvenient heritage. And there is one more problem, rethinking the history and data on the basis of which the objects were entered into the cultural heritage registers. Because there were quite a lot of instances during the Soviet times when the building was listed because some revolutionary lived in it. Now these reasons actually make them evicted from this register. And actually, the tragedy is that the building, the objects themselves are culturally relevant with or without those revolutionaries. And unfortunately, they are losing their status. So thank you very much for your attention. And here you can see a photo from my family archive. This is my granny restoring Kharkiv after the Second World War. Thank you very much, Ms. Kublitska. And not much time, but we have one more speaker, and I would like to present to you our last speaker, Tatiana Balukova, and this is an experience from a different city. And I think for us to get a comprehensive picture, this presentation will be very important. So I would like to apologize for imperfect time management, but I do ask you, dear guests, please find some time to follow this presentation, and then I think it will give you some comprehensive picture in terms of conservation of cultural heritage in Ukraine. Tatiana, you have the floor. Thank you very much. I will try to share my slides. Can you see that? Right, we can. Excellent. My name is Tatiana Balukova, and I am head of the Department of Historical Environment in Lviv. In my opinion, we need to conserve not only the damaged objects damaged by the Russian aggression, but also the objects that need restoration. This year, we managed to restore several objects in Lviv. I would like to share them with you. So here we are talking. Oh, we cannot see your next slide. Can you please try this once again? Yeah. Yeah. We can see that. Yes, right. So I will try to do that. So, as I said, our funding has been decreasing, as you see on this graph. And today, as you can see, our community budget is reduced to a minimum, but we managed to use it to restore several buildings. In particular, we are actually labeling mosaic and ceramic works. And Corey mentioned it. As you see here, my colleague is putting a blue shield on a mosaic mural. Also, we managed to restore the gate of Pototsky, and we managed to plaster it and to restore its metallic elements. This is a national, a site of national importance. And we managed, as you see, to use our budget funds to restore it. The next object is the church in Volia-Homoletska village. And this is a very important object. And here we are using not only the budget, but also Alif Foundation budget. This church is being disassembled totally, and then will be assembled, reassembled again. This is the National Archive, which actually fell, one story of which fell, and the Polonica Institute provided us with the support to provide the scaffolding, and later our municipal budget would be used to strengthen the structure. of this archive. Next, we also work with accessibility and barrier-free access, in particular of this Garrison Church, which is a national monument. And so we must integrate new elements which make it barrier-free. So these are the stairs, which make it accessible for wheelchair users. The next object is monitoring the sculptures which were protected at the beginning of the full-scale invasion. These were the stone sculptures which were wrapped in the beginning of the invasion, but then we needed to monitor and we found out that this wrapping actually did more damage than good, and so we removed it. Here is the list of objects that were damaged due to the Russian aggression. And here you have objects ruined and damaged in these dates, in January and in April in Lviv. And the first object is the housing complex in Striska Street. It is being rebuilt, and even its residents have come back, and they can continue living in it. We did the restoration with the help of our international partners, and also using the procedure that was mentioned by Mr. Poshevaila. This is an interesting object. This is a museum of Roman Shuhevich, and the restoration involved a competition which provided us with a winner. And now we are raising money to actually restore this museum. Everyone is welcome to contribute. Another object is the university in Ljubljana, which was the alma mater for Stepan Bandera. And we provided a cover to seal it from the rain. This temporary cover was funded by UNESCO. Another object which suffered in September 2024, and this was monitored by our colleagues from the state agencies, and this is these are the streets. I'm showing you the houses. This is a city villa in, and it has a beautiful name, Sunny. It is waiting to be restored. Now we are preparing the documentation, because according to the procedure, we can now restore things that are just partially damaged, that have suffered a minor damage. Here, I'm also mentioning the documents that were mentioned by Mr. Poshevaila. And also, I would like to mention a local initiative from our mayor. And this is the initiative, Take the House Under Your Care. In general, many Ukrainian businesses and national entrepreneurs joined forces to care for specific building in Lviv. And we have international projects, international partners who contribute to our restoration projects in Lviv and in all over Ukraine. Here they are sponsoring the restoration workshop at the School of Fine Arts. And we will license restorers. We will start its work in 2026. So I think our colleagues from the Kharkiv School of Architecture, maybe you have seen the premises being prepared for this school. Also, one of our true partners is the Polonica Institute. They are contributing a lot into our restoration projects, including the Benedictine Monastery. And another very important object is in Market Square, which is being restored by our Polish and Ukrainian colleagues. Thank you very much. I try to be swift. Thank you very much, Ms. Balukova. Thank you very much, dear guests. Thank you very much, all our speakers. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time, and so it was very difficult for me to stop our speakers, because your presentations are extremely interesting and very important for all of us to continue our joint work together in terms of heritage conservation in times of war, in particular Ukrainian heritage. Unfortunately, our time is up and we have no time for Q&A session, but I ask everyone to contribute your questions to our chat, and we will collect them all, and together with our recording, we will publish the answers to your questions next to it. So to finish our webinar today, we would like to ask you to follow us, follow our project, join our webinars, and if you have any comments or ideas about strengthening our project and developing it, we will be very grateful if you could share. Looking forward to that. And finally, I would like to say that our next webinar will be dedicated to healing, actually healing the Mosul city through renovation of its cultural landscape, its historical sites. This webinar is planned for the 28th of February, and we will be sharing the information on social media. So please follow us. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you very much, dear speakers, for your excellent presentations. Thank you for sharing your experience and visions. Thank you for your participation. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good evening and have a safe night. Goodbye.